Hey, what's going on, you guys? Super excited to bring you the next episode of the Team Building Podcast, where we interview top team leaders and brokers from across the country to talk about how to scale your real estate business where you don't have to be necessary. You don't have to be a cog in a wheel day in and day out. We're helping empower agents to stop selling real estate and start focusing on building a successful real estate business. Super excited to have an awesome guest today who outsold Omaha's elite real estate group last year, has multiple locations across the country, and has a lot of great knowledge to share with us. Rob Ellerman. Let's welcome him to the show. How you doing, Rob?
Good. How you doing, Jeff?
Doing really well. Rob and I talked a little bit before we jumped on. Rob's actually in Kansas City, and we were having a discussion about the temperature today. We're both experiencing below freezing temperatures. I think I had beat you a little bit. I think I'm at negative 48 degrees wind chill today. It's the coldest day in like the last 25 years, and I think you guys are experiencing the same, aren't you?
That's right. That's right. I'm okay with losing that battle to you, right? You can have
that's a good one to
lose.
You
can have the
right?
weather win.
And I shouldn't tell our listeners because we host events in Omaha, and sometimes we do them the first quarter. It's really nice here most days, you guys. It's not always in the negative 50s. It's insanely cold. Like, I think they say if it's colder than negative 40, your eyeballs freeze if you go outside. Like, you can literally feel them freezing. I haven't tried it. I've been inside all day today.
Yeah. I've heard the frostbite will set in less than 5 minutes in some of those places, so that's crazy.
I believe it. Well, we'll stay indoors. So anyways, Rob, why don't we start off by sharing with our listeners your numbers from last year, and don't ever feel like, you're bragging. Rock Thomas used to always say, never apologize for being awesome. So let the listeners know how many agents you have, how many units you did last year, what your volume was, if you know your gross commission, any stats you have to share with the listeners. I think everybody appreciates hearing stats.
Sure. So we have about 90 agents on the team. We have 5 full-time staff members to service those agents. We have 4 offices locally. 2 offices we just started kind of an expansion, which we'll talk about probably out of our area. We did $338 million in sales this year with over 1,100 transactions. So it's so far an interesting point to my real estate career as I've been in it for 22 years total, 20 with Reese Nichols, my current company. And so far, I'm knock on wood, but I've had growth every single year for 22 straight years. So that's pretty cool.
That's incredible. So 90 plus agents, over 300 million in volume. This is all just last year out of 4 offices. Now you're at, would you call it 6 offices, 4 local, 2 expansion?
Yeah. Just started those 2, so we don't even have any numbers even ran from those yet. So that's how new we are in that process.
Awesome. So for somebody listening who just started a team, they have 3 agents, and they're on listening to this guy from Kansas City in a market where your average sales price is probably low like ours. Like, we're 220. Where are you guys at?
Yeah, 220.
220.
Right,
I mean, just a very average price point, average city, Midwestern city that's freezing cold outside, and you built a company that does over 300 million in volume. You've been in the business 22 years. You now have 6 offices. Everybody wants to be like you when they grow up, Rob. So what I would love to try to dissect from your business is exactly what you did step by step. And of course, we have a belief system where we think agents that want to grow need to focus on recruiting, retaining by offering value, and offering continual training. And I know our listeners would love to hear what additional strategies you implemented to see that type of growth over the last 22 years. So when did you first start a team? And then how did you grow every year? Like, most people have a couple years with setbacks, especially in declining markets like what we experienced 10 years ago.
Right. So right out of college is when I got into real estate. I was the kid in college who, looked at the books, the magazines, and I figured the payments and thought, man, if I could buy this house, I could get my buddies to rent the bedrooms and I could make money, and went in and tried to buy a house. And the realtor said, how much money do you have? And I'm like, well, I don't have any money. And he's like, how much do you make? And, $5 an hour, Burger King, not a lot. And so working through college, and so found out really quickly that I couldn't do that, but that was always my thought process. I want rentals. I want, to do that kind of stuff. So, got into the real estate business right out of college. And
well, let's date you. What year was that?
Yeah, 96. I got my license. So
I was a freshman in high school, just so everybody knows.
Whatever.
I was a freshman in high school.
Man, how do I look so much younger than you?
There it is. You have hair, dude. I'm straight bald.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, I'm losing it. So, but yeah, so I worked, I worked by myself, and I remember thinking, I don't want a team, I don't want to work with listings, and I don't want new construction. That was my thought process. And now it's, exactly the opposite, obviously.
Right.
But I worked, and each year, I know I did. So I look at teams now, and I know your team like went through the roof quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have that. I don't know if it was less information back then. There wasn't a ton of teams. You really didn't know how to structure that stuff. And so I worked by myself, did 2.1, 2.4, 3.7, 4.8, just slowly by myself as an individual agent. I got to about 10.5 million, which was several transactions here, and I saw things start to fall through the cracks. You'd call a buyer and they said, "Well, I bought a house last week," and you thought, "Uh-oh, what happened there? I never lose anybody." So
that's what we like to call the point of diminishing returns. And for most agents, it's at like the 50 to 60 unit mark, which for you happened to be 10 million. Some people it's at 20 million. But I think 50, 60 units, one guy, one gal, that starts to get kind of challenging to juggle that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so I hired my first agent as a buyer's agent. Looking back, obviously the paperwork assistant's probably the first hire that you should do, but I hired a buyer's agent, and she's still with me today. Something I'm proud of. My first 4 hires are still with me today, so our retention is amazing.
What year was that, Rob?
I think that was 2003 or 4, maybe.
Okay.
So
about 14 years ago,
about 14
started
years,
your team.
I think. Yep. So we started, and interesting, she was just handling some leftover leads for me. And we only went from 10.5 to like 11.5 the next year. So we grew, but we didn't grow a lot. And then we added a paperwork assistant, and we went to 16.5 million the next year. So took some off our plate.
I was going to ask you, so for those listening, you talked about just now adding the admin role, and you jumped 4 million with the addition of a full-time administrative assistant working the paperwork, dotting I's, crossing T's. Why did that generate more revenue to your business, in your opinion?
Well, it just frees up your time, obviously. So, I mean, for me, I was good with people, and my agents used to say, I go show 50 houses to get a contract, and Rob, you go show 3 and get a contract. And so that was just always something that I was good at. And I think that was just gaining rapport.
Yeah.
When you gain that trust with somebody, and they walk in a house and you look at them and say, "I'm not letting you buy this house because it's a bad investment. It's, not the right fit for your family, whatever."
Yep.
Then when you walk into a house and say, "This is the one," they believe, because you're honest and telling the truth.
Yep.
So, that was just my, my ammo is just being really good with those people. And so I think that's what really helped us grow. And then I could hand that paperwork off.
Yep. All right. So you're already tracking my business plan. If anyone wants to see the step-by-step progression that took my team from 70 to 700 deals in 6 years, go to jeffsbusinessplan.com or eliterealestatesystems.com. My business plan will pop up, but you'll see on there, Rob, hire 4 to 5 buyer's agents, hire a transaction coordinator. What's the next step?
Right. So what happened with us is we added a couple more buyer's agents that wanted to come work for us. They started seeing us do some good things, and so we added them. I would do the training myself. It was just a small team, and I remember actually our team came in one day and said, "Hey," I started getting grander visions of what it could become, and I remember they came in one day and said, "We want to just stay us 5. We don't want to grow any bigger. We like it like it is." And I said, "Well, I appreciate that, but I want to tell you what's in my mind." And so real good conversation, like, "Hey, that's okay. I understood where they were coming from, but I wanted to make sure they understood that the bigger we grew, the more I was going to take care of them too."
There you go. Let's address where they're coming from, because I think a lot of agents listening right now can identify. I certainly can identify. When you're the family of 5, you don't want to add more stepbrothers and sisters. When you're the family of 10, no one wants to add. When you're the family of 20, no one wants to add. But if they can see that by adding, it brings more value to their business. It gives you the ability to buy better tools, better offices, better moving trucks, etc. Then you can sell it. Where you can't sell it is if you just keep the difference of the profit by every additional added agent, and they're not seeing more leads coming in or other tools and systems coming in because of the additional agents, then you're going to have some problems on your hands.
I always tell people, what happens when a CVS builds on one corner? What goes up on the other corner?
Love it.
A Walgreens.
Yep.
Right? The same business model goes up right across the street. Why is that? Because all leads coming to one central location rises, rises
Yep.
everybody up. So
Love it.
similar in real estate. I mean, more people coming into the team, more leads coming in general is going to help everybody
Sure.
overall.
So let me go back to your,
I
let me go back to your comment
sorry.
on the training piece, because we kind of went over that quickly. A lot of team leaders don't want to take the time to train their teams. Their time's usually spent as the rainmaker, going out on appointments, juggling all the other business components. To think about having to have a systematized training process, I think, is a little overwhelming for a lot of agents and team leaders. How did you go about the trainings? How did you choose the topics, and how often would you do them? Would you require your agents to attend? What did that look like?
Right. So that's where I'm not going to sit here and say I had a great training program back then. You know, it was fly by the seat of my pants. It was, you know, trying to get together when we could. We'd have team meetings. But I've always ran the team not on a corporate type structure. You know, if they miss a meeting, they don't get fired for it. If they miss an event, they don't get fired for it. They run their business under the umbrella of the Rob Ellerman team. And so, in my opinion, I've got agents, you know, a great group here in Kansas City runs it completely different than that, and they do a great job. But for me, if I've got an agent that is a stay-at-home mom and wants to sell 10 deals a year, 15 deals a year, that's where she's at in her life. And I'm not going to force her to sell 50 deals when she can sell 15.
We have the exact same mindset. I agree 100% with that mindset.
Okay. Yeah. And like I said, it's, there's a million right ways to do it. That's just the way it's just the way we do it. But, so back then, as we grew, really the first thing that came about was, I found out from a guy I played basketball with. I was a big sports guy, so I played basketball and football all over. And his dad was starting a subdivision, new construction subdivision, and I was wanting to interview for that, and I was trying to figure out how I was going to make that work. So here in town, usually we have exclusive neighborhoods where you get the entire neighborhood, and then if there's 4 or 5 builders in that neighborhood, you represent all of those builders for that neighborhood. I think in your area it's a little bit different. I've been up to, I know Des Moines a little bit different up there, but yeah, they kind of separate it. But so if you could get the exclusive subdivision, you get every sale that's in that subdivision. So I went out to interview for that, and I remember thinking, what happens to everybody in Kansas City is when they get a new home subdivision, they focus so much on it that the resale business goes away. And what I said was, I'm going to train 2 of my agents to sit on that subdivision, and then I'm going to continue that resale business in you know, it's not a siloed company, but a separate division.
Right.
And I had agents tell me right away that that's never going to work. Your resale business can go down the drain. If they want you to sit there, they want you to sit there, and it wouldn't work. So we ended up getting that, trained 2 agents on site to do that. And that started our new construction piece of the business. So from there, kind of what happened was we ran that for a little bit, and then the recession hit. Okay. If you ask me what's the best thing that ever happened in my career, it's probably the recession. And that sounds odd, but what happened here was the office was buzzing with save your money, don't advertise. It's getting bad. It's going to be bad for a few years. You know, just sockle everything away and don't be out there spending money. So I remember back then in college when I learned what Warren Buffett said, and it was something to the effect of, when everybody else is greedy, you pull back. When everybody else is pulled back, you be greedy, right? So I'm like, okay. So I called every print magazine, and a 2000 cover cost $200, right? Because they were just giving it away.
Yep.
So I made 1- and 2-year-long deals with these magazines to be on back covers, front covers, and all that. And we went from like 75 deals over about a 3-year period to 375 deals.
Wow.
Because what was happening was everybody that had to sell a house was like, well, this is the only guy advertising. So we got tons of lead calls on that.
This advice couldn't come at a better time, because I think everybody knows we've had some really good years in the last 3 to 4 years. Man, in the last 6 or 7 years, we're starting to feel softened market. I won't say it's going to go to a buyer's market or anything like that, but it definitely is not the seller's market we saw 12 months ago. And so I think this is great advice that when times get tough, the tough need to get tougher and get out there and spend the money on the marketing, spend more time on the phones, do more than everybody else is doing, and the business will come to you. I had the exact same experience in the recession from 2008 to 2013. And agents were like, how are they continuing to grow and having all of this success? Well, we continued to work. instead of making excuses about the economy being bad. We just got out there and did everything that nobody else was doing. So that's awesome that you guys did.
Right. Yeah. And I think back then I remember thinking people are starting to realize the benefit of having a really good real estate agent.
Mm-hmm.
The marketing and having somebody that knows, the business, knows how to negotiate, and all the things that come along with it. And we're back to that doesn't matter right now.
Yep.
I'll
just put it on the market myself, put a sign in the yard.
Yeah, Uncle Joe is a full-time something, and he sells a couple houses a year. I'll list with him, and they put it in MLS, and it sells, and it's all good. So,
sure.
So part of me, when people talk about, do you think we're going to have this dip again? Is it going to be as big as I have absolutely no worry about it, because the people who do a really good job are actually probably going to do better.
Nope, I totally agree.
And that doesn't mean that maybe at some time my growth doesn't keep going, because when you start getting up in the 300 million range, like, it's hard to continually grow from there and not have a little bit of a setback maybe on a dip, but it's not going to be something that takes us under.
Yep.
So
what I tell everyone is find that point that makes you happy, that you feel like you're fulfilled in. People will say to me, Jeff, what motivated you to keep going and keep going, keep going? I mean, that's my own motivation. It's my own desires, my own goals. If somebody's listening to this and they're doing 100 deals a year and that's for them 40 million and you feel good with that business, I would suggest stay at that volume level, but figure out more and more ways for you to step out of the day-to-day grind, leverage all the positions so you can go spend your time in Africa or Maui or wherever you like to travel, and have the option of working when you want to work, and then live a leisurely life when you choose to live leisurely. Too often we continue to give ourselves responsibilities, and I think we go too long just constantly wanting to juggle, and our life passes us by. So I really enjoy the mindset of paying it forward, getting to a position where you're not grinding and you can actually just pay it forward and help the people within the organization. Real quick, Rob, before we continue, we have about 15 more minutes. I want to make an invite. We have a very special event coming up. You mentioned Warren Buffett. We're both, Rob and I, are at a company owned by Warren Buffett. Berkshire Hathaway Home Services owns, I believe, Reese and Nichols, and they own our office. They just purchased our office, and it's corporately owned now. And with that, every year, there's an annual Berkshire Hathaway shareholders meeting. And this is for everybody that invests in the Berkshire stock, people over the years in Omaha, especially, lots of people have made a lot of money, obviously, with Berkshire Hathaway. And we are hosting a special event where every month we have people come in for our team building workshop, but we're going to host our workshop on a Friday and then bring everyone the next day to the annual Berkshire Hathaway shareholders meeting. So for you coming on today as a guest, I'm going to invite you for free to attend this. For anyone else listening, it's $1,497. So $1,497. You'd come in on May 2nd. It's a Thursday. We'd have our workshop all day on Friday. It would run from 8:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. And then we'd have an event Friday night. And then Saturday morning, we'll rent a VIP limo bus to take everybody down to the convention center. And you will see Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger, Bill Gates, all the top guys in the financial world will be there. They speak at the event. And then we'll have a fun little activity planned for the afternoon. So it's a 2-day event. Anybody listening, it's a no-brainer, $1,497. You get our workshop, which is normally $3,000, but you get that second special day, which is the annual Berkshire Hathaway shareholder meeting. So again, that's May 2nd through May 4th. Mark your calendars. If you want to get signed up for that, you can go out to our website, eliterealestatesystems.com, click on events, and you will see that event on the dropdown. Have you been to one of those yet, Rob?
I have not been to one of those yet. That sounds great.
Yeah, so if you want to check that out, we'd love to host you here in Omaha, and we'll get you a ticket to the event. I've had a few people. We already have about 15 people signed up. We're going to try to get 30 and stop it at 30. So time is of the essence. If you're listening to this, and this podcast just got released.
And when is dinner with Warren? Is that May 4th?
I'm still working that. I've sent him about 73 letters. He hasn't responded, but I'm working on that.
Right.
That would be pretty amazing. I hear you can actually set up a dinner with him for $1 million. So if we get enough people signed up, we'd be able to do that.
Yeah.
But a lot of people ask me if they have to buy a share of stock to get to go, because to get tickets, you do have to own either A or B. You do not need to buy stock. I will get tickets for everyone. I own enough shares of B. The Bs, I think, are like $1,500. A's are like a couple $100,000. So I'm trying to work on the A's. But I've got the B's, so I'll get everybody into the event. We've done this a couple years in a row, and it's an awesome opportunity. So anybody listening, come out to the workshop, go meet Warren Buffett. He's very old. He's not going to be around a lot longer. He is the Oracle of Omaha. I'm trying to take over his title, but I'm not there yet. He is the actual Oracle of Omaha, and everybody's heard of Warren Buffett. You'll get to see him in real life, face-to-face, in an auditorium of about 50,000 people.
Very cool.
So let's shift gears for a second. So we've talked a lot about, what got you guys to where you are now. A lot of agents that are having a lot of success and generating a lot of income oftentimes struggle knowing where that income should go. And I know before we jumped on live, we talked a little bit about some of our investment strategies and successes that we've experienced. I would love for you to share with the audience kind of the strategy you and your wife have deployed in and around the Kansas City area to both pick up rentals, apartment complexes, flips, and what that looks like.
Yeah, sure. So initially that's what I wanted to get into the business for. That was my thought process, was I wanted to have rentals and things. And one of my first closings, maybe my first closing ever, I saw this lady, this is in the 90s, and she had the big hair and she had all the jewelry and everything. And we were at a title company, and she said, I own 187 rentals. And I said, oh man, I want to talk to you. Like, that's what I want to do. And she goes, it is the biggest pain in the ass you'll ever have in your entire life. And I just kind of deflated for a second, like, wow, that stinks. And she goes, but if you want to be super wealthy, do it. And so right away, she made me realize, like, she's right. It's a pain at times, but over the long haul, it's really, really good to invest. So, so now we have a few rentals. We don't have a ton, of maybe single family wise, we may have 25 or 30, something like that. But I also have ownerships, and we are building about a $35 million apartment complex in our city here, 243 units. Wow. It'll be brand new. It'll be awesome. So I'm the second largest investor in that project. Got 150 up in the Northland here. We just flipped one in about 45 days, a 62 unit, profit about 800,000 on that one, just in a 45-day period. So
you're flipping, you'd mentioned off air, you're flipping apartment complexes, right?
Yeah. So yeah. So we're looking at that. Then the 1031, if you don't know about the 1031 for wealth building, it's amazing. You can take that profit, roll it right into the next project, put all that money down, not to pay taxes on it, eventually leave it to your kids, tax free, hopefully. So, so really cool stuff. We also flip a few houses, 10 to 15 homes a year, and my wife runs that. So she designs and works with the contractors to do that stuff, and gives her something really cool to do. A small side company that, makes, in the big scheme of things, makes pretty good income on that, but it's just a smaller company. So
that's awesome. I know I talk a lot about putting ourselves in a position of leadership where we can essentially treat our teams or our brokerages like a residual income that would come off of a rental. So often agents continue to be a cog in the wheel, and I feel like they can't get away from having to be tied to something. The beauty behind the rental, even though the woman that you had talked about complained about the hundreds of properties because of all the headaches and things that come up, and we've experienced the same. We have 50 doors right now and experience the same thing, even though we don't manage them. We have a property management company, but they still have to reach out to us to make decisions and things. But even with all of that, no matter what you own, you're going to have people reaching out, and you can assign someone to make that their responsibility. But the residual piece is the key. And this is the same rule that applies when you own a piece of stock. While you're sleeping, hopefully it's gaining traction. It's increasing in value. And with a rental, it's continuing to increase in value. It's appreciating while someone else is paying off the debt that you have, which you should carry debt on the rental. And so that's the beauty of it. So over 20 years, if you're on a 20-year note, someone else pays it off. You continue to cash flow through month to month. And now you have an asset that's 100% paid off. You mentioned your numbers just on 100 houses. If you look at 100 houses and they're all worth $100,000, I think that's 10 million. In 20 years, you got a $10 million asset, even though now it's probably doubled in value. So you're sitting on 20 million with 100 houses. Right. So, do the math on that. 10 houses, you want to be a millionaire, just buy 5 or 10 houses and get them paid off in the next 10 years and you're a millionaire.
Right. And, we haven't even delved into depreciation. The tax write-off and the depreciation of somebody else, paying for that. It's amazing. There's, I always look at that Forbes 400 magazine when it comes out, and I always just pay attention to how many self-made millionaires or billionaires are in it, and how many of those come from real estate.
So many.
Amazing.
Yep. So. Well, I have, I'm going to give everyone a teaser Elite Real Estate Systems is actually partnering with a gentleman that I'm very good friends with, who is an expert at flipping and buying investment property. And we're going to be able to get you guys a little bit of a discount to get into his coaching program if anyone's listening and knows that they want to move forward with the same strategy that Rob's implementing and that I've also been implementing through my investment company here in Omaha. So stay tuned. Some future podcasts we'll be able to announce the partnership. It's coming down the pipeline probably in the next month or so, but we're going to try to help anyone that's in our network that's wanting to learn more about investing in real estate. Instead of us trying to take that on in addition to teaching people how to scale teams, we thought we should hand that over to an expert that has the time and the resources to take everybody down that road. So Rob, this has been a great interview. I think you and I could go for 10 hours. So we definitely would love to have you back on. For all the listeners that want to just kind of reach out and thank you for your time today, what's the best way for someone to get a hold of you, and or if they have referrals for you or want you to partner with them on a 1,000-unit apartment complex?
Yeah, absolutely. Just rob@reesenichols.com.
Rob at Reese Nichols. Reese Nichols is ReeceNichols.
Reese Nichols. That's it. Perfect.
Okay. Perfect. Awesome, Rob. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate you coming on today. This has been awesome. Hopefully those listeners out there have gotten a few gems that they can implement into their business. And until next time, thank you.
All right. Thanks, Jeff.
Yep.